evaluating functions without the graph means we have to use algebra. So we'll be given a question and an equation. So f of x equals negative x squared plus x, find f of negative 1. So what this means is I'm substituting negative 1 for x. So there's a couple steps that I recommend to help prevent some common mistakes. So step 1, rewrite the equation by replacing x with open parentheses. So I'd rewrite f of x equals minus x squared plus x. Step 2 is we're plugging in an x value to that spot. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. All right. So inside of my f of x, my value for x is negative 1. So that's what I'm plugging in. So f of negative 1 is equal to negative parentheses negative 1 squared plus negative 1. All right, now the reason I say do the parentheses and then plug the value in is it's really hard to keep track of negatives, and so those parentheses help us remember what we're doing. So the next thing is to simplify, which we've got to use the order of operations, PEMDAS. Step 1, parentheses. Well, inside the parentheses, there's just a value of negative 1. There's nothing to do there. So that one's already done. Step 2, exponents. We have one exponent, right? It's the squared. And so with exponent, actually what I'm doing is I'm taking that negative 1 and squaring it. So negative 1 squared. Now be careful when you're plugging things into a calculator, because if you plug it in correctly with the parentheses, your calculator will tell you that it's positive 1. Without the parentheses, the order of operations, the exponent is just 1 squared, and then it becomes negative as multiplication. So this would be minus 1. So be careful that you get that when you square a negative, you get a positive. So at this point, we've got minus, and then from before, that negative 1 squared is just 1, and then plus negative 1, I'm just going to write that as minus 1. Right, so this yellow piece. So multiply, I mean, a lot of times we'll kind of clump this all together, but technically we could say that that piece there is multiplied, then minus, and then the 1 in parentheses. So either way, that just becomes minus 1, which we skip down to addition and subtraction. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. So my answer should be, I'm going to put it in first as y equals negative 2. And it gives me this pop-up, right? They don't, even though it's correct to say y equals negative 2, he's just wanting the value. So in here, we'll deleted too far. Minus 2, submit, and that's it. Let's do another one. Okay, this one is actually a little easier for two reasons. One, we don't have any exponents, and two, my x value is positive. So minus x plus 3. X equals minus x plus 3, and we want f of, it's g, same thing. All right. So we named this equation differently. Right? We've named it g of x, which again, it's not multiplying g times x, it's notation to say we're giving this equation the name g, and this equation g, when evaluated at x, will give us the y value. So, step one, we replace there it goes, it's kind of stuck. So step one, we're replacing the x's with open parentheses. So minus parentheses plus 3, and then step 2, we're plugging in that 1. And there's no exponents. Multiply gives me minus 1 plus 3, and then there's no dividing. Add these together, and it's negative and a positive, which gives me 2. 3 minus 1 is the same as, right? So 3 minus 1 is the same as negative 1 plus 3. Either way, you get 2. And so yeah, the ones to be careful of, again, if you have multiple x's, it's multiple spots you're plugging in this case, -7. This is just substitution. Be careful of the negatives, especially if you've got a negative exponent or a negative variable, and good luck.